In this week's episode of Talking About Orcs, due to popular demand, we'll be going over Warhammer Legends. And what I mean by popular demand is I put a poll up on Twitter, and this was the option that won. So if you want to participate in future polls for future Talking About Orcs videos, please follow me on Twitter. That is my primary social media that I use. I very rarely update my blog anymore. I don't use Facebook for hobby stuff other than read other people's stuff. Facebook I use primarily for personal reasons. So Twitter and Instagram, I don't like Instagram. So I've been sticking almost entirely to Twitter. So follow me there with my link below. And now on to Warhammer Legends. So this was a bit of news that broke within the last couple weeks about all the units that don't have current models, or in our case, never had models, that are being played out of the indexes are going to be moved to what they call Warhammer Legends. And what that means is that they will have points values and data sheets, but quote unquote, we won't be recommending Legends units for competitive tournaments. This means that event organizers and attendees alike can guarantee everything they're gaming with is easily available and has been subject to the same rigorous balance and playtesting process. Of course, organizers are also free to run Legends events, allowing the use of these full classic range in their games. This is actually a pretty huge hit to competitive Orc players. So let's talk about the units. The units that are going to be affected by this are the units that are currently being played out of the index that are not in the codex. So that Warboss and Mega Armor, Warboss and Warbike, Big Mech, which is almost always taken with a force field, Big Mech on Warbike, which again is almost always taken with a force field, Painboy on Warbike, the 3 buggy variants, and big guns, specifically Luda and Cannon. Lava and Cannon. So just to preface this isn't going to affect anyone who isn't playing in these competitive tournaments like Nova or Bay Area Open and stuff like that. If you're not playing in those events, this really isn't going to affect you. So a vast majority of the gaming community aren't really going to be affected by these Warhammer Legends because there's no reason why you can't just play them anyway. And most friendly places will not have a problem with them. There's very few of these units are going to be overpowered. The problem I have with the Orks, though, is that these are some very, very popular units and some very iconic units. The Big Mech with Force Field has been around for a very long time in various iterations. I'm pretty sure he's in the 3rd edition codex, if I'm not mistaken. It wasn't that good in there, but it was in the 4th edition where it really came into being. And same with the 4th edition codex where you got the Warboss and Warbike and the Painboy and Warbike. Of course, he was only part of the Knob unit at that time, but I digress. But these are units that have been around for more than a decade. People have them in their collections. People are playing them on the top competitive lists that Orcs are putting out right now. I don't know if that can be said for any of the other factions where the index units are vitally important to your competitive armies. The Big Mech with Force Field specifically is a very cheap HQ unit. I think he's like 55 points or something. I don't remember how much he is with the Force Field, but it's not a lot. It's a very cheap HQ unit, and he's got one purpose, and that's to keep other things alive. And the only alternative is a Big Mech and Mega Armor with a Force Field, which is like twice as many points. And if you have any sort of a fast army, you took the Big Mech on Warbike with a Force Field. That's not even an option. So the only fast Force Field is the Wazbomb Blastojet, which isn't a character, so it can't be protected. It'll be the first thing that's shot down. She gets shot, and then you lose your Force Field for everything else. The Warboss on Warbike is just a great unit, just period. He's killy in and of himself. He allows bikes and infantry units to advance and charge. And he's great to go with Storm Boys. Same with the Big Mech on Warbike with Force Field. Great to go with Storm Boys or Warbikes. Give him that Force Field. And the only other thing to keep up with, if we have HQ unit that's fast, then would be Death Killer War Trikes, which are mediocre. I mean, to be honest, especially compared to Warboss and Warbike, they're vehicles, so there are lots of things that benefit from shooting at vehicles. It's much bigger, so it's a lot harder to hide. You can hide a war boss on a war bike pretty easily. And Gef Killer War Trike, not so much. So these units that we're losing here, there is no replacements. That's why people are still playing them, because there's nothing in the codex which is a good replacement for any of these. So what it's going to end up doing is taking the Ork army down a notch, and it's not like we're a top tier army to start with. We don't see Orks winning a whole lot of major tournaments, and this is just going to make the Ork army list worse, or worse than making the armies worse. It's going to reduce the variety in of our armies. The way I play right now, my current freebooters list, losing that big mech on Warbike with the force field is huge, because I've got so many fast vehicles. You give us all these stupid fast buggies, and you don't give us a way to protect them with the big mech on Warbike with a force field. I mean, that's just dumb. This is just, for anyone who plays competitively, this is a huge downer, and I'm very disappointed, very unhappy about losing these index units. You know, it was probably one of those things that was inevitable, but it doesn't make it any better. Because you'd think that just not having a model isn't enough, especially when it comes to Orks, because we don't need official models. We can loot anything. The Ork community out there has been converting and looting war bosses on war bikes for more than 10 years. So I don't see any reason why we can't just keep that up and keep these things in the codex. Even my big mech on Warbike is a looted engine from a Stormhawk Interceptor, and it's one of my favorite models that I converted up, and I won't be able to show them off anymore. And that any sort of competitive event, which really is a disappointment. So there's really not much else to say. I mean, the Ork army in competitive events is going to take a huge hit from losing access to the index units that we play, because the force field is such an important model, is such an important rule in our army, because without that 5-up invul save, our stuff just melts to any sort of shooting, because we have no armor saves, we have no built-in invul saves anywhere, and we can't get into combat, which is what we're supposed to do, without being able to survive a turn or two of shooting. And without those force fields, there's just no chance of that happening. Well, I guess the Morkanaut has a force field on it too, but the Morkanaut is horrible. I'll get the Morkanaut eventually. So that's what I think about the change to Warhammer Legends. It's really going to take a lot of survivability out of an army that doesn't have much to start with. So it's going to make our tournaments list worse. It's going to make our tournaments list much more routine, much the same, and none of those are good for the competitive Ork players. But again, I just want to reiterate, this is an important point. If you're not playing in competitive events, it's not going to affect you. Don't worry about it. Just play whatever you want and enjoy yourself. That's what 40K is really about. But those of us who do like to play competitively, it's depressing. It really is. Well, that's really all I have to say about Warhammer Legends. Once again, remember that if you do want to participate in future polls like this, go ahead and follow me on Twitter. Links down below. I post things to Twitter very regularly, memes especially, because I like Ork memes. And yeah, so let me know what you thoughts about Legends below, and thanks for watching. Thank you for watching this episode of Talking About Orks. Please subscribe and hit the bell button for notifications for new Talking About Orks videos every Wednesday, new battle reports every Friday, and hobby videos whenever I can. Thanks for watching.